In the metallic shadows of the urban maze, the truth is a flickering light that guides the brave through the night. We bring you the most compelling tales of survival and hope from the corners of the world that never sleep. Hit subscribe now and follow the light with us. My brother called me an ATM to my face at Thanksgiving, and the worst part was that nobody at the table said a word. I'm 29, a licensed occupational therapist, working at a pediatric clinic in Columbus, Ohio. I've spent the last 4 years quietly covering what my family calls the gap, the difference between what they earn and what they spend. My parents live in a 3-bedroom house in the suburbs that I've been subsidizing to the tune of $1,800 a month. My brother, who is 33 and perfectly capable, has been bouncing between schemes since he left community college a decade ago. Dropshipping, crypto, a pressure washing business that lasted one summer. Each time I was the soft landing. Each time I told myself it was temporary. It wasn't temporary. Last November, I drove 40 minutes to my parents' house for Thanksgiving. I brought 2 pies from the bakery I love on 5th Avenue, a bottle of wine, and the naive hope that we could just have one normal holiday. I should have known better. The moment I walked through the door, my brother was already at the kitchen table with a laptop open and that look on his face. The one I've learned to dread, halfway between excitement and entitlement. Perfect timing, he said. I need to show you something. I set the pies down. I didn't sit. He'd found a business opportunity. A food truck, this time specializing in Korean-Mexican fusion, which he'd heard was blowing up in Austin. He'd already picked out a truck on Facebook Marketplace. He needed $35,000 to cover the truck, permits, equipment, and 3 months of operating costs. He'd put together a slideshow. An actual slideshow, with fonts and everything. I just need you to front it, he said. I'll pay you back inside a year. My mother was stirring something on the stove. She didn't look up. But she said, "It's a good idea, sweetheart. He's really thought it through this time." My father was in the living room watching football. He called out, "Family helps family." That's the thing about them. They say it like it's scripture. Family helps family. As if that phrase has ever flowed in any direction except toward me. I stood there looking at my brother's slideshow. Slide 4 was literally titled, Revenue Projections, Conservative. And I felt something shift. Not snap, exactly. More like a slow giving way, like ice that's been thinning for months. "No," I said. He blinked. "What? I'm not doing it. I can't." My mother finally turned around. My father muted the TV. The silence had a texture to it, dense and pressing. "Can't or won't," my brother said. His voice had dropped into something flatter and harder. "Because you make good money, and you're just sitting on it." "I pay your parents' mortgages," I said, and my voice came out steadier than I felt. "I covered your crypto losses. I paid off 2 of your credit cards last year. I can't keep doing this." "We raised you," my mother said, not yelled. Said. Which was somehow worse, that quiet certainty. "We sacrificed for you, and you can't help your brother get on his feet?" I looked at her. I looked at my father in the doorway now, arms crossed. I looked at my brother with his laptop and his slideshow and his absolute confidence that I would cave, because I always caved. "I have to go," I said. "Don't be dramatic," my brother said. I picked up my purse. I left both pies on the counter. I drove home in the dark with my hands tight on the wheel and my chest full of something I couldn't name yet, something between grief and relief. That night, I got a text from my parents. Both of them from my dad's phone, which meant they'd composed it together. "We've talked about it, and we think you need to take some time to reflect on your priorities. Until you're ready to be part of this family the way a family member should be. Please don't reach out." I read it twice. Then a third time. I typed back. "Okay. Then I'll stop being part of your finances too." I hit send before I could think about it. Within 6 minutes, my phone was ringing. My brother, then my mom, then my dad, then my brother again. I watched the screen light up over and over, and I did not answer a single one. 11 calls in 20 minutes. I turned my phone face down on the coffee table and sat with my cat in the quiet of my own apartment and thought, they're not calling to apologize. They're calling because they just realized what they cut off. I opened my banking app that night. I'd set up automatic payments 2 years ago because it was easier than fielding the monthly calls, asking if I'd sent it yet. $1,500 to cover what my parents' income didn't. $400 to a credit card in my brother's name that I'd been paying as a loan. I canceled both. The confirmations came through, plain and immediate. I screenshot them both and sent them to no one. They were just for me, proof that I'd done the thing I should have done a long time ago. I didn't sleep well. I kept waiting to feel like a monster, and the feeling never came. What came instead was a strange, unfamiliar quiet. My best friend, we've known each other since junior year of high school, called me the next morning after I texted her the basics. She said, "I've been waiting for you to do this for 3 years. I mean that with love. Are you okay?" I told her I thought so. She told me to come over for coffee and I did, and we sat in her kitchen for 2 hours and she said something I wrote down when I got home. "You were never their daughter. You were their solution." I didn't know how true that was until I heard it out loud. 4 days later, my brother posted on Facebook. I wasn't even looking for it. A coworker I'm friendly with sent me a screenshot with a message that just said, "Hey, saw this. Didn't know if you knew." My brother had written a long post, the kind with no paragraph breaks, about how family was supposed to mean something, and how devastating it was when someone you loved turned their back during hard times. He didn't name me. He didn't have to. Anyone who knew us knew. He got 63 reactions in the first hour, mostly the sad face. A few angry ones aimed, I was pretty sure, at me. My aunt, my dad's sister, who I've always been closer to than most of my family, texted me that afternoon. "I saw what your brother posted. I want you to know I'm not buying it. I've watched you hold that family up for years and I've kept my mouth shut too long. You did nothing wrong." I read her message probably 5 times. There's something about being witnessed by someone who was there for all of it, who saw the pattern and named it without me having to explain. That breaks something loose in your chest. My brother's post kept circulating. An old friend from college commented that it was heartbreaking and shared it to her story. Someone I went to high school with, a guy I haven't spoken to in 7 years, commented, "Family first always." None of them knew anything. They were reacting to a story my brother had carefully constructed, and I was the villain in it, and I had no way to correct the record without looking defensive. I decided not to try. That was the hardest part, not the money, not even the disownment text. It was choosing silence when every instinct told me to explain myself. I drafted a response twice. Both times I deleted it. My best friend reminded me, "Anything you post becomes their ammunition. You don't owe strangers your trauma." She was right. I put my phone down and went back to work. The following week was when things escalated in a way I hadn't anticipated. I was in the middle of a session with a 7-year-old client, fine motor exercises, building with pegboards, when the receptionist knocked on my door and told me there was someone in the lobby asking for me. Not a patient family. Just someone asking for me by name. It was my brother. He was standing by the front desk with his hands in his jacket pockets, and the look on his face when I came through the door was something I'd never quite seen before. Not the usual charm or the entitlement. Something closer to desperation. He said my name the way people say it when they've rehearsed what comes next. "I just need 5 minutes," he said. "You can't be here," I said. My voice was low. We were in a pediatric clinic. There were children in the waiting room. "I'm not here to fight," he said. "I'm here because Mom and Dad got a notice from the landlord. They're 2 months behind, and if they don't pay by the 15th, they're going to start eviction proceedings. I need you to cover it just this once, just to get them through, and then we can figure out a longer-term plan." "You need to leave," I said. "I'm your brother. I know who you are. And you need to leave my workplace right now, or I'm going to ask the front desk to call security." Something moved across his face. Disbelief, maybe, or the first real understanding that I meant it this time. He stood there another few seconds, then he left. He didn't slam the door. He just walked out, and I watched through the window as he got into his car and sat there for a long moment before pulling away. I went to the bathroom, ran cold water over my wrists, looked at myself in the mirror. My hands were shaking. I gave myself 3 minutes and then went back to my patient. That evening I called my aunt. I told her what had happened. She was quiet for a moment and then she said, "You know what your mom told me when you were in college? She told me you were the responsible one, so they didn't have to worry about you." Like it was a compliment. She paused. I didn't understand at the time what that actually meant. I do now. I sat with that for a long time after we hung up. I made an appointment with a therapist the following week. Someone I'd been meaning to see for months and kept putting off. Her office was warm, lots of plants, a white noise machine in the hallway. She asked me in our first session to describe my role in my family of origin. I started talking, and somewhere around minute 15, I started crying. Not dramatically, just the quiet kind that comes when you finally say a true thing out loud to someone who is only there to listen. She said, "It sounds like your needs were conditional on your usefulness. Do you think that's accurate?" I said yes without even having to think about it. We talked about what I'd been doing as care and what it had actually functioned as. Not love, but leverage. The payments, the loans, the covering of gaps. None of it had ever bought me belonging. It had only bought me a temporary reprieve from being cast out, and eventually they'd cast me out anyway, the moment I said no. The insight wasn't comforting exactly, but it was clarifying. About 6 weeks after Thanksgiving, my best friend texted me something she'd heard through mutual connections. My brother had abandoned the food truck plan. Apparently, the truck he'd found on Facebook Marketplace had significant mechanical issues that the sellers hadn't disclosed. And when he tried to back out, he lost his deposit. He was picking up shifts at a restaurant in our hometown, waiting tables. I didn't feel triumphant. I want to be honest about that, because I think people expect a clean satisfaction in these moments, and that's not what I felt. I felt something more complicated. Sadness, mostly, for the person he could have been if he'd ever had to build something from scratch, instead of borrowing my foundation. And underneath that, quieter, a small and private sense of, this is what accountability looks like. Not what I did to him. What reality did, once I stepped out of the way. My parents, according to my aunt, did receive the eviction notice. They found a smaller apartment, 1 bedroom, significantly cheaper, and my father, who had since semi-retired, picked up part-time work at a hardware store. My aunt told me this carefully, the way you tell someone something they need to know, but that will also hurt them. It did hurt. I won't pretend otherwise. Picturing my parents downsizing because of choices they'd made and systems I'd dismantled. That's not a win. That's just what happens when the math finally catches up. In February, I got a card in the mail from my mother. Actual card, handwritten. She wrote that she missed me and that she hoped we could talk when I was ready. She said she loved me. She didn't mention money. She didn't mention my brother. She just said she missed me and she loved me and that she was sorry things had gotten so hard. I sat with that card for a long time. I haven't responded yet. Not because I'm punishing her. I want to be really clear about that, but because I'm not sure what I'd say. I love you too is true, but it's not the whole truth. The whole truth is more complicated. That I love her, and I spent years trying to earn that love back through my debit card, and at some point the love and the money got so tangled up that I couldn't feel one without the other pulling at me. Untangling that takes longer than 3 months. My therapist asked me recently what I wanted my relationship with my family to look like, eventually. Not now, eventually, if things change. I said I wanted something honest. Something where they called to ask how I was, not what I had. Something where my brother and I could be in the same room and I didn't feel like a target. She nodded and said, "That's a reasonable thing to want. The question is whether they'll be able to meet you there." I don't know the answer to that yet. I might not for a while. What I do know is this. I wake up on Saturday mornings now and my first thought is not what someone else needs from me. I make coffee. I sit by the window with my cat. My bank account reflects my actual choices. My apartment is quiet in a way that took me a long time to stop interpreting as loneliness. It's not loneliness, it's mine. My best friend came over last weekend. We ordered Thai food and watched a documentary about deep-sea creatures, and she fell asleep on my couch, and I covered her with a blanket and thought, this is what it feels like when someone is in your space, and you're glad they're there, not bracing for what they're about to ask for. I'm not going to tell you that cutting off the financial support was easy, or that I have no regrets. I have questions still. I wonder sometimes if I gave up too fast, if there was a version of this where I held a harder line earlier and the whole thing didn't have to collapse. I wonder if my mother's card means what it might mean. I wonder about my brother in ways I can't quite articulate, some mix of love and frustration and genuine grief for the relationship we didn't have. But I also know what it cost me to keep going. I know what it looked like, in the light of my therapist's office when I laid it all out and saw it clearly for the first time. I wasn't their daughter, in any of the ways that mattered. I was the responsible one, which meant I was the one they didn't have to worry about, which meant I was the one whose needs didn't count. I counted. I just had to stop paying to prove it. If you've ever been the person in your family who holds everything together, who pays, who smooths things over, who gets called selfish the moment you stop, I want you to know that the ground doesn't fall out from under you when you say no. It only feels like it will. What actually happens is much slower and stranger and harder, and eventually much more livable than you expected. Say no. Stay with the discomfort. See what's actually yours when you stop carrying what belongs to someone else. That's what I'm still learning. I think I'll be learning it for a long time. But at least now, I'm learning it in a place that's finally fully mine.